Hello, everyone. How y'all doing today? Hope your Friday is well. Hope your week is going well. It's good to be with you once again. My name is Gene Rice, the primary facilitator for the Academic Excellence Program that we are offering. It's a 60-day program designed to help our kids, our students, improve their academic performance. I'm excited about this offering. It is a offering that I think will meet the needs of our students in a very measurable and impactful way. And I think it's something, even if you don't have a student or a child that's in school, hey, I'm quite sure you know someone who could benefit from these services. This is an opportunity of a lifetime for them. And there are so many distractors and influences out there that would love if they miss this opportunity and not seize the moment. Uh, but it is our opportunity to ensure that our loved ones maximize this opportunity and get the most out of it. Because having an understanding of how the system is structured and how it operates can go a long way in terms of leveraging your education. Okay, leveraging getting that education right now is important to help our students to navigate through the system. They may not understand the ins and outs, how it's structured, how it's formed, the impacts. But if we take the time and invest now, eventually they will come into that realization and benefit from our efforts early on. All right. So I'll talk more about that here in a second, but I just want to talk to you for a moment. I do have a topic for us to discuss, but before we get into that, just some thoughts and personal reflections that I have. Um, we left off on the broadcast yesterday talking about finding out what a person's bottom line is, because that's where their focus is, their mindset is, and their energy is going to be found wherever their bottom line is. I'm concerned with where is the bottom line. The bottom line does not necessarily mean the baseline. The bottom line does not necessarily mean the intermediate line or the top line. Sometimes the bottom line could be something that is below standard. All right. The bottom line is determined by each individual. All right. Um, and so I am very, very concerned when the bottom line is below the standard. All right. Um, and it's also concerning when the bottom line falls below the standard and people within an environment are comfortable with that line being below the standard. All right. So I'll quickly move on from there. What we want to do is identify what is an individual's bottom line. All right. And we want to build upon that and really think about that to see, is this at the right place? Is it at the right place in terms of what you deserve, um, in terms of your potential, in terms of what you should be aiming for? All right. And then from there, if it's not, then we start to redefine why the bottom line is where it is and start to create new definitions, new frameworks, and new expectations of where the bottom line should be. And then we start working from where an individual is to get them to at least the initial bottom line. And then we start describing what is the next line and what is the top line that you're trying to get to. Any, I always use these analogies. Any athlete, if you're playing basketball, the bottom line is to get the ball into the hoop. All right. It doesn't matter how well you dribble. It doesn't matter how well you shoot or rebound or box out or play defense. It doesn't matter how many minutes you play in a game. The bottom line of that particular sport is getting the basketball into the hoop more times than your opponent. Playing football, doesn't matter how muscular you are, how strong you are, how well you throw the ball, how well you catch the ball, run the ball, block or tackle. The team that gets the ball across the goal line the most and through the goalpost the most will win the game. That's the bottom line. So we need to identify what is the bottom line in the educational experience, all right? And taking some time to define that. I want to go into the lesson and then we'll talk a little bit more about the program on the end. I want to talk about estimates. This is a lesson that we discussed quite some time ago, and it's based on the scripture reference of Luke chapter 14, verses 25 through 33. It gives two examples. The first example describes a builder who first needs to sit down and count the costs before he builds his construction. The second example describes a king or commander that's in charge of troops who finds himself at 10,000 troops, but his opponent has twice as many troops. And so he must consider, is he going to go direct engagement or direct conflict with his opponent, or is he going to sit down and count the cost as well and consider the odds before he deploys and engages his troops? Both of these examples describe estimating and the importance of sitting down and counting the costs before you engage in an endeavor. In each instance, the estimates allow us to, one, assign the appropriate value, the intensity and focus and effort on a particular project or program or campaign that we're doing to make sure that we're bringing everything to bear that needs to be there, all right, in order to get it done and get it done successfully. So here's the definition of estimates, and then we'll continue to move. From Merriam-Webster Dictionary, it says, an estimate is an approximate calculation or judgment of the value, number, quantity, or extent of something. All right, it's an approximate calculation or judgment of the value, number, quantity, or extent of something. Another definition is the act of appraising or valuing. The act of appraising or valuing. Some synonyms that were also associated with the word estimate are evaluate, assess, appraise, rate, and set. So when you hear those words, what are you thinking about? So depending upon what we're talking about, it's very easy when we start talking about a car, all right? It's easy to estimate simply by the model, the maker of a car, the type of car that we're talking about. When someone just simply says a Mercedes Benz, all right, and they start talking about the different classes of Mercedes, automatically, depending upon what class they're speaking of, you automatically start estimating about how much that vehicle is going to cost. When you start speaking of different clothing and different brands that people associate with their apparel. So when you start talking about things like Louis Vuitton, or I don't know if Coach still has the same value that it once had, or you start talking about, I know from my day, Tommy Hilfiger, Polo. I don't know exactly what the brands are nowadays, but when you start talking about certain brands, you automatically think a certain price point. If you're in sports and you like the basketball shoes, you're talking about Michael Jordan's, maybe, what is it? what is it, the Wheezys or whatever, the shoes by Kanye West. When you start talking about certain shoes and certain things as it relates to different individuals, it automatically starts calculating certain price points. All right. That's a part of estimates from a material sense. And so whenever you do that, you're evaluating on its value as it relates to the public, quality, its unique design, as well as the actual composition of the object that we're speaking of as well. And so we're evaluating, we're assessing, we're appraising, we're rating, and we're setting or setting the value based upon certain characteristics and attributes. All right, I'm going to give you a couple more definitions, and then I'm going to give you my version of what this means. It says it also means to appraise for the purpose of understanding or interpreting, or as a guide in taking action. I'm going to repeat that one very slow because there's a lot for us to extract from that, which is kind of where we're going when we're sharing estimates. It says a critical appraisal for the purpose of understanding or interpreting, or as a guide in taking action. Key words there in the end is you using estimates to take action. But before you take action, you want to interpret what you're looking at. You want to create understanding about what you're looking at. All right. Anyone can take action. And depending on the type of action that it takes, it could be relatively low risk. All right. There's some actions that have a higher risk and a higher return. And in those instances, we want to look a little bit deeper about that action, interpreting what does that mean when we take certain actions, and getting an understanding of those actions and being able to operate at a certain level. All right. Here's what I want to leave with us for our discussion as it relates to estimates. Estimates involve exploration. It involves consideration of something. It means to look, to observe, to analyze, to generate findings from calculations. It's to estimate. So when we're talking about time, you're estimating time, how much time is available to do something. You're estimating the quality, what type of quality is necessary in order to do something. You're also estimating quantity, how much of something is required to get certain things done. All right. So when we start talking about estimates in that sense, we're talking about specific things. All right. But also when we start talking about estimates, we're talking about the recommendations that come from those estimates. That's one of the sole purposes of an estimate, is that it gives you a recommended or a list of recommendations in terms of how you should act or what decisions you should make. All right. And then from recommendations, you go to, you start building plans around those recommendations. And then you create different plays, all right, different tasks or different ways you're going to execute certain things. And then those plays feeds into what we call operations. And those operations feed into tactics and strategy. All right, I'm going to give you a real quick example that ties all those things in together. Again, I will go back to since we're in the sports season, I'll go back to a football analogy. So when you're playing the game of football and you're preparing for your season and you're preparing for your opponents, There's going to be some level of exploration. You're going to figure out what type of talent you have on the team. You got to understand what type of coaching staff is on within the organization. What is the philosophy of the head coach, and are the supporting coaching staff, do they share that philosophy? Are they aligned? What are the different strengths and weaknesses of the coaching staff? And then you start using that same approach down at the player level. What are the strengths and weaknesses of the players? And so you start exploring and considering and observing all these factors, and you start analyzing what is the right formula that we need to generate for this team so that everyone is flowing and working as a cohesive unit. All right. And in order to do that, you have to explore, consider, look, observe, and then start working to put those things together. And then once you figure out what some of those combinations are, they generate what we call findings. All right. Now, once you have findings, now you're able to start making recommendations. All right. Here's how we should approach our practice sessions in order to build our style of play, in order to understand what plays and what techniques and formations work best with our team under certain conditions. And then you start making recommendations, and you go in the planning process. You start building this plan based on all of that analysis. All right. And then it's one thing to have all these plans and all of this work done, but it's not really validated until you test it. And so now you go into the execution where you're actually scrimmaging against each other first to see and to test and validate your style of play, to see if all these combinations are actually working like you want it to. And then from there, you continue to tweak and develop your tactics of how you're going to operate and employ under certain conditions. And then that feeds into your overall strategy that you're going to use in terms of your style of play. All right. That is a lot of jargon. That's a lot of details all compacted together. But if you start to peel and slice away each one of those, when you are developing an estimate, it actually takes that much detail, that level of focus, working through the material, working through all the different components in order to generate the right results. Now, I'm going to digress for a moment. I said all that. Hopefully we'll go back and review and continue to look at that a little bit more. Just imagine the team that actually goes through such a deliberate process of understanding themselves and actually implementing their findings from their estimates into their operations, their execution, and the way that they conduct their business, versus a team that just says, we have a talented coaching staff, we have a talented group of players, and everything is just based off a feeling. It's based off the moments. It's based off of hoping for the opportunity to come up. When you start talking about the first team that we described, they don't build their strategy off of hope alone. Matter of fact, they build a strategy of creating opportunities, of leveraging opportunities, and exploiting opportunities. So hope has a factor, but it's more geared toward their intentional actions that they take. And how do they do this? They do this by going through this whole intensive process of estimating. All right? You don't just run and execute. You don't just haphazardly put together a plan, but you go through that preliminary process of developing an estimate. And it says an estimate helps you to understand the value of what you're doing. It allows you to go through a series of calculations so that you can start understanding how much of something is required to operate at a desired level. Not just how much, but the quality of what you're doing. All right? And then it helps you to make judgments. Estimates allow one to make quality judgments. I want to put a pin on that point. So when we start talking about academic excellence, when we start talking about improving academic performance, it's all about judgments. How are you looking at this opportunity to learn? What is your value of this opportunity? What is your level of understanding of this opportunity? How are you interpreting what should be done in this moment? And do you have a picture of how the development of this moment feeds into the next thing? So when we're talking about a sports team, it goes from estimating and planning to practicing. All of those things combined is put together for the sole purpose of operating in a real game. And so it is in one's educational experience. It's important that we put together the right calculations, that we assemble together the right materials so that we can make quality judgments to understand the value of this opportunity and creating value in this current moment so that we're able to achieve our desired aims and objectives when we move forward. All right? And the more one devotes time in developing quality estimates, it allows one to build quality plans, quality plays and strategies, and the operations and the execution of what they're trying to do operates at a completely different level. All right? What are your thoughts? What do you think? What do you think about estimates? Have you ever thought about estimates in that way? Now here's what I want to leave with you for this particular episode. In this program that we're offering, it's not just giving them real-time support, but we're also helping them to create estimates about their education. Understanding that although it seems like when you're doing just classwork from day to day or homework or different projects, it seems like that it doesn't make sense. But if they are developing estimates properly, they understand that this is a piece to a larger context. This is one piece of a puzzle that when you do this piece, it adds a bigger picture of what you're doing. And then whenever you step back and look, now you can start to see how the completion of individual tasks, doing those individual assignments well, it allows you to be able to see a section of what you're doing a lot clearer. And then when you step back, you're now able to see that the completion of this section is one of many different sections that must be complete in order to get the full picture. And so estimates allow our students to understand how the individual work requirements fits into a larger context. And they're able to judge the value of individual work requirements and assignments to understand that the more we create value of each individual assignment, it creates greater value in the section, which creates greater value across the entire spectrum of what they're trying to do and accomplish. And it's so important that this is seen correctly at an early age. I am a big believer that there are some windows when they're open, it is almost, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's almost impossible to go back and recapture certain moments that are available right now. There's certain things that needs to be seized and captured right now in this present moment. All right? And I believe that creating an estimate that is real, it's practical, and it addresses the real concerns and experiences of our students right now, is going to give them greater judgment of how to maximize this moment. All right? And I'm going to close with this. One of the reasons why I'm on this particular episode, I'm really pushing that theme is because society sometimes can be set up in such a way that if you're not prepared or ready to deal with certain demands that are part of life, sometimes life and society can be unforgiving. All right? And you find yourself in a predicament, in a situation, all because you are not able to assign the proper value of moments and experiences that happened previously. All right? And I want you to think about the examples that we have used so far. Is that there are groups of people, there are individuals who understand that there is a premium placed on education. That getting an education right now is the absolute highest value of someone who is in their development stages. And they understand that getting an education, which is more than just learning things, which is more than just getting a grade, but actually learning how to learn, learning how to make judgments, how to value certain opportunities. That is the real parts of education, is judgment, making estimates where you're able to determine value, and where you're able to seize the moments by putting certain things together because you have explored certain things, considered certain things, you have combined certain things, and you've created a formula that you understand, hey, whenever I'm able to put these things together, I'm able to generate value not only in this moment, but I'm also generating value for the future. All right? And so we want to make sure that our students are able to maximize this moment. All right. A little bit about the program. We have 3 different offerings within this program. We have the premium offering, the advanced offering and the standard offering. If one gets the premium, they're going to receive training support. Now, what I'm doing right now is more addressing the why education is important. And at the top of this particular discussion, we talked about the bottom line. What is the bottom line for an individual? All right. Then we got to figure out, is the bottom line below standard, at standard, somewhere slightly above standard, or is their bottom line, all the way at the top? So it's very important that we understand where a person is in their process, and then go through those steps to see if that bottom line is at the appropriate level. And if not, that's the very first thing we need to address right off the top. All right. And so we want to make sure that we, at least within our training sessions, we at least figure out what the bottom line is for our participants. And then from there, we have put together specific topics and specific tools and strategies that will address the actual academic work. All right. So we're not just giving them a bunch of motivational talks or anything like that, but actual tools and strategies, approaches and methods that they can actually apply on day one that will start creating an experience where they can start to see improvement in their work. All right. We get that specific because it doesn't make sense to talk about academic achievement if you're not able to get academic results. And if you're not able to get academic results, it doesn't make sense to talk about academic results if you're not performing at the right level. All right. It doesn't make sense to talk about performance if you're not actually doing the work. And it doesn't make sense to even talk about the work if you're not understanding what the requirements are in order to do the work. And everything I just described is a part of estimating the entire learning experience. All right. And so I just literally broke down to you a process of what we use in order to move them from where they are to the goal. So we don't just set a goal and say, hey, make straight A's. All right, well, how does that work? All right, in order to make straight A's, you got to get certain results, which means you got to perform, which means you got to be able to work at a certain level, which means you got to prepare at a certain level in order to begin to do the work. All right. And so those are just some of the steps that we move through in order to help them. And that's part of our training. Now, the coaching is actually where we come and we are literally understanding the student, understanding what their needs are, what their concerns are, looking at where their level of learning is, their ability and capability is, and then creating activities and tasks that will strengthen those areas where there are gaps, all right, or bridge those gaps. And that's the coaching aspect. And then the portfolio, which is the third feature within the premium package, is we're chronicling and documenting their work as we go. So we have an estimate, all right, and we're basically describing how much work is it going to take, how much preparation, what is the quality of the inputs that are required in order for the student to feel like they're prepared to do the work. Because in doing the work, that's where we're going to start seeing a certain type of performance, which is going to generate the results, the desired results that we're looking at. All right. And so that is a very intensive and detailed package that you'll be able to measure throughout the entire program exactly how your student is performing, all right, and how well they have progressed overall. The second package is the advanced. It includes the training and coaching, and then the standard is just the training. And based on what your student need, we choose the appropriate program. All right. Now I have some very encouraging and very exciting news. Just today, we have another sponsor who has sponsored 4 additional students at the premium package. All right, they have sponsored 4 students at the premium package. That's major. All right, that is major. All right, and so we want, um, sign up in that window. You can go to that address, just copy and paste it into your window, then you can sign and enroll your student up today. And if you have more questions about the program and how it works, you can either call or email with the information that's also in the window as well. All right. So again, we need your support in order for this to work. I believe, this is my personal belief, is that this investment is one of the most important investments that can be made at this moment in their life. All right. Because once they get beyond school, it's game on. All right. Just like the analogy we used at the very beginning of the broadcast. You spend all your time estimating and putting together the right stuff in this phase so that when you get to the game, you're ready to play. All right. That's what we're looking for with our students. We want them to do all their estimating, do their calculations, start learning how to make judgment calls, value judgment calls, understanding how to assess certain things to come up with the right values, how to calculate, not just doing the numbers because, academics tells us to do certain calculations, but how do we do life calculations so that we're able to extract the greatest value from this experience. All right. So this was the comments as it relates to the program. Look for me real soon. I'm going to come back on here and then I'm going to talk from a different perspective, not from the program perspective, but I'm also going to share from a different perspective as it relates to just the overall experience of learning in this environment and how we can make the most out of it. So again, thank you for taking the time. We appreciate you. And we look forward to talking to you again. Until next time, you all take care.